one. I don't know, but if people aren't getting along, like in relationship, they break up.
How do we solve this?
National divorce.
Yeah, but that always will result in a civil war.
It shouldn't. It doesn't have to. So just like a married couple that decides that, we can no longer be married, this is not working, they resolve the situation in a court, right? They don't actually go to war or they shouldn't try to kill each other. Maybe some of them do, I don't know. But they dissolve it. They dissolve their marriage in a court. And so essentially really what national divorce should look like is it should go back to how our nation is founded, where state rights were far more important than the federal government. And the federal government's role should be reduced down to a very small role, and state rights should be so strong. And so that, if you want to live in a state where everyone has to be vaccinated, everyone has to wear 3 masks, at least 3, maybe 4, and then you want to have a more communist style state government.
And CRT's taught in the schools.
CRT, absolutely. And all of these radical things, or what we call radical, but they may love it.
Sounds like Massachusetts.
Or California, but they should be able to have that. And then if you're like Kentucky or Georgia even, or Florida, you want to have a more conservative, pro-traditional family values. Let's say that you want to say no, you can choose to be vaccinated or you can choose to wear a mask, and you want to have a more free government, you should be able to have it, and then there's no interference.
I mean, this may be a negative thought, or maybe a positive one, I don't know, but if people aren't getting along, like in relationship, they break up, so like, why don't we just finally just realize that these states aren't working and like divide up into like 2 or 3 countries of like USA 1 and USA 2.
I've heard that all of the girls they started to hide me. Oh, I stayed in your heart and treated you badly. Yeah. It doesn't hurt anymore when you walk through the door.
And they can be USA 1. Like the conservatives can be USA 1 because they love being number 1, and it means something to them. And I'd love to have that be theirs. They can be USA 1, we'll be USA 2, and we'll be allies. Be allies.
I'm a part-time lover.
Yeah, hopefully we will be allies no matter what happens tomorrow. President Biden announced on March 24th, 2021, that Vice President Kamala Harris would lead the efforts. Where would she lead her? Where would the talent of the great one, Kamala Harris, lead the country? Well, Joe Biden tapped her on the shoulder and said, you take on this little task. Vice presidents always have these pet projects. It's like one step above the first wife. It's just one step above like the little projects that they handle. What did the Biden administration hand over to Kamala Harris in 2021? It was nothing big, just the southern border, leading efforts with Mexico and the countries down there that present the challenges at our southern border, which is caused by U.S. imperialism. I'm not going to deny that. But just a small pet project for Kamala Harris. I don't know. Could you guys have warmed her up with something? I don't know. Making sure the White House is clean or something, washing the dishes. I don't know. Maybe she could have made her own calendar, baking cookies or pies or something. I don't know what her talents are. Maybe the knee pads. Give her something that could you guys have kind of broke her in on something a little bit more simple than the border? And it looks like they really did task her with the border, because now we fast forward to almost 3 years later. And we're seeing actions at the southern border that are leading us up to possibilities that are disastrous, including civil war. Maybe she wasn't the right one for that. I don't know who they could have found for it, though. What's happening at the border is an accumulation of a bunch of different things just being represented, just at the border. It's not just the border. When you're in a relationship, this country is nothing more than a marriage. It's a little bit more complicated, but it's the same concept. 50 states, except it's a marriage with 50 people involved. It's amazing that it's lasted this long. So you have 50 people in the marriage, and this stuff is bubbling up way quicker than I thought would happen. Bubbling up, and with Greg Abbott, a Bush guy, would have never guessed it. But it's never the issue that you see. It's always something deeper. It's not about you didn't take out the trash. It's not about you forgot to do this. It's not about you forgot to say this, or, all those small little things that could bubble up into an argument in a relationship. It's always something deeper, and you sit down and you unpeel the onion and you're like, damn, you go back to like 10 years ago. You're like, damn, I didn't know you were still thinking about that. This is about J6. This is about the Michigan 16. This is about the Georgia 19. This is about Fanny ass Willis. This is about, I was going to call her Williams again. This is about fatty ass Willis. This is about the MAGA red sermon speech. This is about the DEI stuff. This is about CRT. This is about being gaslit every day and seeing it on commercial outlets and knowing you can't do a damn thing about it. It's about being censored on social media, from Parler getting removed to Donald Trump getting banned from Twitter. And it's about the government hiring more IRS agents. It's about the FBI getting a new headquarters. It's about people trying to force Nikki Haley on you when nobody asked for her. I feel like I'm getting politically raped. I didn't ask. The answer's no. Why do you keep feeding her to me? It's like, this is accumulation of the billion-dollar donor class. Allegedly, somebody trying to, well, I don't even know if it's on tape. The dude, Jeff DeWitt, resigned, bribing Carrie Lake. Who knows who did that? Was it the cartels? I've heard all kinds of crazy rumors. Nobody knows. All of these little things adding up, and it's coming out in the border. We all know China's behind the border. We don't know the full extent, but we know China, they're very efficient. The art of war is you don't need war. So how much do you think it costs to facilitate people to get across the border from the U.S., to poison the universities, set the scene for, you can't say anything bad about these damn illegals. Why can't we say anything bad about illegal aliens? Why can't we call them illegal aliens? What's happened to our culture? All of these things festering in, boiling in a pot of just stew of division. You try to force chicks with dicks on people. It is, and then not only that, on people, on adults, they try to teach it in schools. They try to do, for some reason, you have to dress as a cross-dresser to read to kids at times. The pride parades getting crazier every year. All of these things that you might think, oh, that doesn't mean anything, or that doesn't mean, you don't think it means something for a section of your country. You're married to somebody. The person you're married with thinks that a biological man can become a woman, or a biological woman can become a man, and that you can do it to kids. You think that you could be married to somebody and you both don't agree on that? That's not, I would love to see how those marriages go. If one spouse, they're all divorced. You see them playing out in the court cases where they're fighting over the kids now. You can't stay married in a situation like that. That's not possible. You look at the populist left and they talk about this stuff like it doesn't matter. To hell, it doesn't matter. There's a million other things that spawn off of that if you don't agree on what a man or a woman is. If you can't agree on that, you can't agree on anything substantive in the country. Of course, you're not going to agree on the border. Biden is trying to get to the border so he can let the illegals in. That's what he's trying to fight to do. We can't agree on this. We will never agree on it. I'm not trying to argue it. I'm not trying to convince you. What I do want is peace. That's the only thing I would like to convince you of. There's no need for violence to be popping off. But it does have to be made clear. I do have a right to defend myself, and that will never be taken. That right is not given to me by you or anybody else. So that's where I'm at. All of those things, and then heat it up in the pot. It boils over, and it's like when you're boiling water for noodles or rice, it just spills all over, and then it's like nobody's doing anything about this stuff. It's just spilling all over the place, and pretty soon the pot has no more water. It's just hot, and then I don't know, somebody puts a little match. You play around with this stuff. Maybe these guys aren't serious. Greg Abbott, I don't fully trust him. I will give him some credit though, because he's done a lot more than I gave him credit for. I'll talk about that, but they could be kind of playing games. This isn't games anymore, guys. This is not fun. This is not like some type of political act anymore. This isn't like how much should we increase taxes by. This isn't an argument over Social Security. This is an argument over men with guns. There's nothing else. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that after Donald Trump gets removed from the ballot, I know there's a stay, but they definitively ruled that he's disqualified over insurrection, that only a few months later, that's like an afterthought. That's like nothing. That's not even close to battling over thousands of men with guns. That's where we're at. Christian, thanks for stopping by. Wish you recovery in your shoulder. $5 sticker. Just drops it and leaves. Or not leave, stay, but thank you. Yes, Christian is getting serious. I can't imagine. I don't know where we're going to go. Metalopoly, great friend of the show. What's good? Long time no chat. Last time I checked, 25 states are siding with Texas over the Fed. Things are certainly getting interesting. And I would like to know the extent of what that means. You know, somebody could say, I stand with you, but then things start popping off, which we don't want popping off. And then you be like, nah, I don't stand with you so much. One of those 25 states is Georgia. Georgia? You mean the same Georgia that stole the 2020 election that led us to this? The same Georgia that has done nothing about Fannie Willis and that corruption, which we knew was corrupt before we even found out that she spread her cheeks for Nathan Wade, allegedly. Are you really going to be down with a confrontation against the federal government, depending on, I don't think it's that, but would you depend on Georgia in that case? Probably not. But still a good sign, don't get me wrong. But you see how complicated this stuff is. This is not a drill. This is serious. This is serious time now. This doesn't get any more serious than this. We're well beyond general election and politics. So who owes Roseanne Barr money? Roseanne Barr famously said, I don't think we're going to have an election. We're not there yet, but I'd start taking your wallet out for her, whoever made that bet with her. Libby Evans was on Tim Pool today. Let's take a look at Tim Pool today. Libby Evans had a 46-second clip here, and tell me where the lie is. I can't find it. No lies detected, Libby.
Quite a scary concept. It's something that we've been hearing about for a while, right? You have the Democrats saying if Trump gets into office, he's never going to leave office, and this will be the end of democracy. You have, on the Trump side, on the GOP side, you have people saying this is essential for democracy, that we don't let Biden stay in office, that we don't let the Democrats stay in office because they're using essentially lawfare to destroy citizens' lives. to go after Trump. Who knows what else they could do? They're lying all the time.
And
Everybody thinks on both sides that democracy is literally at stake. And what that probably means is democracy is probably at stake to a certain, if all of the enemies are agreeing on what the situation is, then we probably have a problem.
Yeah, I know a lot of people in the comments, they were all on me about the democracy versus republic. I got you guys. But the point is, that's not the point. The point is, her point is well taken. If both sides believe democracy is at stake, then democracy is at stake. That's where we're at. It doesn't matter if people are kind of faking or posturing. That's how stuff pops off. It would be nice to hear some more, well, we got this problem here. Let's negotiate it. That's what I would have liked to hear. We don't want any problems. We're not going to do any. We're all peaceful here. You're going to have to negotiate with us. That I haven't heard anybody say that yet. I haven't heard every clip out there. But I didn't see what happened with the Tim Pool show today, since we're on Tim Pool, just real quick. But Jesse Kelly was on there. Jesse Kelly does a radio show, and he's great. Don't get me wrong, but we had back and forth before, but that's enough. I have back and forth with everybody. But he's great, but I guess he kind of went over the line from the Tim Pool show. When you're a guest on somebody else's show, it's like you're a guest at somebody's house. I know you want to be entertaining, and this is tension, man. You can feel the tension in the air if you're paying attention to this stuff. I texted my wife and I was like, civil war is on the brink, right? And she replied with an emoji with her, like a Bitmoji, with her outside of a tank, like with a salute. I'm like, okay. I was kind of serious, but great. But if you're paying attention to this stuff, you can feel the tension in the air. And I think that's what's kind of boiling over with Tim Pool and everybody. It's a huge show for Tim. There's a huge show. Every show is huge for Tim. But this is, all he talks about is not wanting civil war, but the possibility of it. He's been proven right. I don't know why people are out here still not giving him credit for predicting it or saying this is the path we're on. And I'm hoping it doesn't go there, but we're clearly on that path. And I'm going to talk about that too in a second. I don't know. I don't think there's a return. I don't know how you return to normal from this, but he had to pull the show, and understandably, he was a little frustrated.
What?
It's like
I think it's only fair that I don't take the heat for what you said, Jesse, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm getting people attacking my character now for having had to take the show down because you made 2 allusions to killing people. So I'm not trying to be a dick right now, but I've got 500 messages of what the fuck are you doing? Why are you taking the show down? Are you fucking with us? You're trying to make money.
So I'm not going to play that whole thing, but the reason I play that is tensions are very, very high right now. You can just take a scissors and cut it in the air. And I'm seeing you see beef. I've seen the Dilly meme team still beefing with Babylon B. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just telling you what's happening. I've been beefing with people. People I respect highly. It's just not beef, but having back and forth, man. Stuff is real, man. You still got the Israel stuff. You've got the Jewish stuff popping off. The homie, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Elon pronounced it different. Dom Luker, getting demonetized on Twitter. Probably the number 3 account on the whole app. It's just, there's so many things in the air. And then you put this here, you're seeing that it's especially in the non-left circles, the non-bootlicking left, even the populist left they're kind of off the rails. They're feeling it too. Jordan Lott, libertarian dignitary of the show, says negotiate with libertarians and independents. That's the common ground. I agree completely. Absolutely. It sounds like citizens of Texas are open to that. Greg Abbott's open to that. I think that's a possibility. Absolutely. You negotiate with everybody. I say to negotiate with Biden too. That's how you can't, you've got beef. You have to negotiate this kind of stuff. I don't know what the negotiation is. The negotiation might be, the ultimate separation. Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor here, was on, and like I said, when you talk about the tension on this issue, you could cut it with a knife.
Administration could make would be confronting law enforcement or our military, our National Guard, at our border, at this park, when we're actually doing the job that the American people want. So if they come down and create a situation, all of America already knows now, they will clearly see that the Democrats are willing to take on a state that is operating under our constitutional right to protect our people and protect this country. I don't think even Biden will make that mistake. We're not looking for a confrontation. We're looking for them to do their damn job and protect the lives of Texans and Americans and protect the borders in this country. And for every person that's died of a fentanyl overdose, for every person that's been murdered by MS-13, for every law enforcement officer who's been killed in the line of duty because these people across the border, that death is on the hands of Joe Biden and this administration and his policies on the border. They should not come and confront us. They should just let us do our job.
This is, you can hear it right there. That's Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. And I've been telling, they got to speak out, and they've got to do more. So they have been speaking out. They spoke out today, and I need to hear more of them speaking. It sounds like the deadline. What is the deadline? But Joe Biden, I have to look. How was the deadline even brought about? Was it just leaked to the press? Tell me if you know in the chat, but the deadline is tomorrow. I don't know what that means. Is it now tomorrow, or is it 11:59 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow? I don't know. When are we going to do this? Is this going to be like back in the day after Antebellum? Are we going to take our picnic baskets off to the hill and watch it? Where are we going next? You give an ultimatum, and you can't go back to the courts. You can't say, I'm going to give you till tomorrow and I'm going back to the courts. Texas is defying the courts, and there's some disagreement on that, but I think they clearly are defying the courts. Let's listen to Dan Patrick. He was a little less emotional here, and which is good. He's getting into a little bit more of the details with Glenn Beck.
Us constantly in a constitutional crisis.
Yes.
Is Texas willing to go to the mat with the federal government on this?
Yeah, on the border, absolutely. In fact, I co-wrote with the governor Senate Bill 4, which we passed at the end of last year in the umpteenth special session that we had. And it says that our law enforcement can now act as, in essence, Border Patrol. We can arrest, we can detain, we can put in jail people who come here illegally. And the bill says that if we see you cross, or if we happen to find out you cross, because maybe as a traffic stop, well, where are you from? Well, I just came across the border, whatever is said, that we run a background check, fingerprints, and do a photo, and then we take them to a magistrate and we say, you can either go to jail or you can go home. And if you go home and you come back, you're going to jail for a long time.
Now, that would be great. SCOTUS doesn't have anything to say about that?
Well, we just passed in December. They're already suing us, and that will be up next. And I'm so disappointed this week because Arizona tried it in 2012. The bill is not as good as ours, and the court wasn't as conservative. So I think we have a real chance to win this. But what I saw from Amy Coney Barrett,
Do you have any idea?
I have no idea, because they didn't give a reason. How could she be separated from?
The actual ruling was about a paragraph long, and they gave no reasoning. I'm going to tell you why in a second, why they did that. The Supreme Court.
Alito and Gorsuch and Thomas and John Roberts, I get. I mean, he's I mean, we don't have any confidence in him.
No.
Now, this was a temporary review of it. It will.
And it didn't stop Texas from doing anything.
Right.
It said the federal government can go and do this.
So we still have our wire there.
Yeah.
If they cut their wire, guess what?
You put new wire down.
We patch it up.
That's why. That's why they didn't give a reasoning, because we're talking about a piece of wire, and so they can come and cut. This is what, so the Supreme Court just went back to the Fifth Circuit's decision, basically temporarily until the court case is heard. So if you say the federal government can go in and cut the barbed wire, and that's how narrow your judgment is, then what Dan Patrick said is we'll go back in. Well, Texas isn't even, to my knowledge, not even letting them in. But so that was interesting for him to say that. But he said we'll just put it back up.
Of it will.
And it didn't stop Texas from doing anything.
Right.
It said the federal government.
So I do not agree with this. I do not agree with this interpretation. You can't have, what kind of sense would it make to say the interpretation of the ruling is so narrow that it says the federal government can cut the wire, but it can't move it, or it can only cut it. I have to look at it to see exactly what the Fifth Circuit said, but it's limited to they can cut it, but Texas can build it back. What is this, Tom and Jerry? You can cut it, but I'll build it back. You can cut it, but I can build it back. That doesn't make any sense at all. And they know it doesn't. That's why they didn't give a reasoning. It's just dumb. We're nearing the end. What that means is the Supreme Court has no legitimacy. I'm going to continue with that in a second. Eric Krauss says, F negotiating when they just lie and steal and cheat. Why should we? Because you're going to have to negotiate no matter what. There's no path through this, not with my thought through it, without negotiating. Even if you secede from the union, you have to negotiate. You're seceding from the union, how are you going to trade? Who are you going to be with? And how are you going to break up? I mean, I always bring this up, the national debt. How do you break that up? You're not going to just leave the union and be like, the national debt, that's your problem. That's not going to work. I mean, that's just not a realistic thing. That's not the right thing to do. You're part of the union. You are part of the national debt. Make a good, legit offer. It'd be like getting a divorce and saying, well, I'm not splitting up the money or what. That doesn't, I mean, you can do that if you want, but I don't support it. So no matter what path you take, Eric, and thank you for the comment, you got to negotiate. This ain't going to happen without negotiating. I want peace. I don't do anything outside of peace. So there is nothing without negotiating. So that you have to, and for me. So if you have to negotiate no matter what, then you should. Utah governor came out in support of Texas. I don't trust Utah either, but it's good to hear. Great to hear. Thank you, Jordan Lott. Hey, it's better than nothing. And I like how the snowball effects happen. You've got governors that come out in support, and more come out in support. This is where I'm going to take it. I disagreed with Vivek, and you tell me if I'm wrong here. I could be wrong. But it just doesn't make sense. And maybe I'm wrong because I'm right and it doesn't make sense. I'll tell you what I mean here. So Greg Abbott had a statement released, and Vivek Ramaswamy said the claim that Texas is defying the U.S. Supreme Court is flat out false. The court held that feds can remove the razor wire. I thought they literally said you could just cut it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they said you could remove it too. Remove the razor wire that Texas is installing on the border. But that does not stop Texas from still continuing to install the razor wire. Do you see the problem I have here? Their constitutional crisis averted. I couldn't tell if he was kind of joking or not. But then a lot of people queened him. And I'm like, why are we sugarcoating this thing? The ruling, if the court is going to rule that the federal government can cut the barbed wire, then what that really is the federal government upholding the government's right to control the border in general. You can't have it, well, I don't agree that the federal government, right now that's still in limbo, but they can cut the barbed wire. So they can cut the barbed wire, then they can build it back up. That doesn't make any sense. Texas is defying the Supreme Court, and they should be open about that. They should say that. They have not. I'm not going to be harshly critical. They're showing a lot of courage right now, but let's be honest. They are defying the Supreme Court, and I fully support that. What I don't like is you not acknowledging it. If you support Texas, then make sure that they don't lie. And that's actually very dangerous, because what Vivek is doing there, I like Vivek, but we disagree here, because Vivek is downplaying the seriousness of this. That's the problem I have. Because look, it means that Texas could ignore anything coming from the Supreme Court as illegitimate. Keep in mind, the Supreme Court has no means to enforce anything. That's why they didn't give a decision. That's why they're really in a weakened position right now. They're almost, I'm going to actually say they are irrelevant. We've got men with guns. The Supreme Court is not relevant. They don't have guns. They don't have control of nothing. The Supreme Court operates on the honor system. We operate on the honor system when it comes to their rulings. There's nothing, they say it and we agree to it. There's nothing to enforce whether we do or not. Now there's nothing to enforce and we disagree, there's nothing other than brute strength. You could say sanctuary cities. That was unconstitutional. I don't know if there's a Supreme Court case on that, but unconstitutional. Nobody really cared. That was a mistake. Now you look at that. You should have said, hey, we got to secede from this union. If you're going to allow sanctuary cities, then there is no constitution. That's completely, that is obviously unconstitutional, and we're seceding unless you get rid of that. That's what should have happened, but it didn't, so let it go. You had, and I don't think this should have broke up the country, but you had federal laws against marijuana and states that legalized it. Nobody cared. The culture is more important than the laws. The culture is like, we don't care. So when it comes to the Supreme Court, now you've got two cultures that do care and are on the opposite sides. That didn't happen. That could have happened with marijuana. The same thing that's happening on the border could have happened with marijuana. What's the difference? Nobody cared. That's the only difference. So right now, both sides care, and it's at that point where Joe Biden can't back down. He can't. He'll look like a fool. Remember Texas v. Pennsylvania? That was problematic. SCOTUS didn't take the case because they knew the election was fraudulent. That's my opinion. I think they did not take the case because they knew the election was fraudulent. Now we are having to pay the price for that mistake. All they did was kick the can down the road. This isn't something I talked about this the day that it happened, I believe, still on YouTube. You can look that up. This is all coming from that same issue. That's how Joe Biden got into power. Stolen election, through a stolen election, and everything else is the fruit of the poisonous tree, and now we have a price to pay. The Supreme Court was supposed to be that stopgap to say, nope, we're going to push back inauguration, we're pushing back everything until we figure out what the hell happened here. We were doing a full breakdown of this nonsense. Oh, they absolutely could have. But they didn't. The Supreme Court knows they can't force anybody to do anything. So if they were to do that, they couldn't force D.C. not to keep going with the inauguration. They couldn't force anything. Then they thought it was going to break into chaos. But now we're here. I haven't been following this stuff as closely as I should be. Take a look at this. Donald Trump had comments. After this, I'll take a look at the comment sections in the live because I really want to hear where people are at. What are you thinking? I do need some clarity here. Am I way out of line or am I underplaying it? I don't know. Via Colin Rugg, one of the top accounts on X, Donald Trump is calling on all willing states to send their National Guard to the state of Texas to help defend the southern border. Here is the statement from Grandpappy Don. When I was president, we had the most secure border in history. Joe Biden has surrendered our border and is aiding and abetting a massive invasion of millions of illegal migrants into the United States. Instead of fighting to protect our country from this onslaught, Biden is unbelievably fighting to tie the hands of Governor Abbott and the state of Texas, the great state of Texas, so that the invasion continues unchecked in the face of this national security, public safety, and public health catastrophe. Texas has rightly invoked the invasion clause of the Constitution and must be given full support to repel the invasion. We encourage all willing states to deploy their guards to Texas to prevent the entry of illegals and to remove them back across the border. All Americans should support the common sense measures by Texas authorities to protect safety, security, and the sovereignty of Texas and of the American people. When I am president on day one, instead of fighting Texas, I'll work hard hand in hand with Governor Abbott and other border states to stop the invasion, seal the border, and rapidly begin the largest domestic deportation operation in history. Those Biden have let in should not get comfortable because they will be going home. That's the statement that kind of got people, got their panties in a bunch and they were clutching the pearls and everything. All he said was, I encourage all willing states to deploy their guards to Texas to prevent the entry of illegals. He didn't even really get to the heart of the conversation there. And when you send the guard in, the danger here is that the guard can be, at the snap of a finger, federalized. The language around that is so vague. And I looked up some of that language, and it's really, it's so vague. There is no checks and balances on it. And so many things where you're like, is this how it always was? Was it always this vague? Was it always this poorly written? The president here has the right to federalize the National Guard of any state. This is authority here to call the National Guard into federal circumstances such as invasion. They wouldn't do that. Rebellion. They could do that. Or when unable to execute federal laws with regular forces. That's the one I think they would use. We are trying to execute federal law by cutting the barbed wire. And all of you that went to Texas, you are now under my control, Joe Biden. That's what we're seeing here. That's what could happen here. We've had 2 Democrats call for it. I don't have the links up here now. It was one of the, was it Castro brothers? I forget the 2 Democrats. 2 Democrats openly. That's not even, we're not talking about politics anymore. You call up the National Guard, so now you're at that point in the movie, the best part of the movie, the climax of the movie. Does the National Guard go with Joe Biden, or do they stay with the state governor? What do do some of them split? Do some of them? That's what the Democrats were calling for. These, at least I saw 2 at least, calling for that to happen. Reckless abandonment. They feel like they have the power of the federal government and they want to unlive you. There's no problem about it. And Jesse, if you want to go on YouTube, I haven't had problems when I use the word unlive, and it's the opposite of live. I think we know what we mean. They don't want you to breathe. That's what I mean by unlive. These Democrats, it's at least 2, definitely want you unlived and gone. That's what that means. Joe Biden, too, as well. No surprise there. But Donald Trump, I'm glad to see Donald Trump spoke out. We needed to hear from that, bro. Let's look at the comments. Bobby Ballbags become great friend of the show. Random thought. Remember when the Mexicanos were slur was being called? Okay, I don't know if you're allowed to say that on YouTube, so I'll skip it. What's the new slur for all the non-tamales who now flood our streets? Bobby Ballbags always got me laughing, man. I like that, man. If Civil War is coming, why not get a laugh in? We're at that. I always talk about Game of Thrones before the slime war. I haven't watched it in a while. I need to watch Game of Thrones again. I have not read the books. But they had that war with the green slime. And I believe it was that one at night. Before that, they were all drinking, bang, busting the women like Fannie Willis. And, it's your battle. You don't know if it's your last one. We're in that day. We're in that moment. Drinks on, everybody. You got your drinks. Go get your bang bus on. Bobby Ballbags, get your jokes on. Guys and gals, Civil War is coming. I'm hoping it's not. I'm hoping it's not. I hate to say that I am not expecting. I just want to be clear. That's not what I'm hoping for, but I am expecting not a good outcome. I'm not expecting a good peaceful outcome. What would lead anybody to think that there's going to be peace? There's no signs of negotiation. Joe Biden has arrested citizens, their DOJ. They've locked people up, J6. Matthew Perner unlived himself because of the persecution, the unconstitutional, unlawful over-prosecution, persecution. And nobody cared. They didn't care at all. Nobody cares. The states didn't. Why Texas didn't rise up over that? I said Florida should have rose up as soon as they raided Donald Trump. Now, if we've gotten to the point where raiding Donald Trump seems like nothing, and Texas is in a dangerous place because you got a bunch of federal agents who are already in that state. That you gotta decide what you're gonna do. They don't let you turn back from this one. They could go. I got to look at the proper legal terms, but the same thing they're doing with Donald Trump, they could do to a sitting governor. The governor, it's difficult, but they could. They could raid Greg Abbott. They could wait till. I mean, he has unlimited terms in Texas, so he's not up for re-up until 2027. But there is a statute of limitations, I think, on 5 years there. But I'm sure they'd find a way around that. Get him hemmed up if he lost his re-election. They'd steal that election too, probably. Supreme Court is enforcing the supremacy clause. The border is the federal government's to manage. No, that's a debate. No. And the Supreme Court and other thing, Death Buck, the Supreme Court's almost irrelevant. I don't give a damn what they think. That's what, I mean, it doesn't matter. But see, that's why you have to go all the way to secession. You can't take it and say, well, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. That's what Texas is doing, in my opinion. Greg Abbott has not acknowledged that yet. And then you can't take it and then not take it to secession. How do you come back from that? But no, this is stemming from what Dan Patrick talked about, 2012. There was that Arizona case, and the Supreme Court basically ruled in a manner where the interpretation going forward was the federal government has 100% control over the border. That's unconstitutional. That was never that doesn't make any sense. So the federal government has complete control over the border, even if they're letting illegal aliens in by the millions. Oh, you get out of here. There's no way. There's no way. And even if that were the case, that ain't how we're going to live. So now what? That's where we're at. We're at that point where it's just like, now what? You don't need to even go to the Supreme Court. They're irrelevant. They're slow. Their rulings have no integrity. They have no enforcement power. We're at that point where it's just like, now what? So I don't believe all the states that went up there are down with them, but I looked up the Federalist Paper number 46 written by James Madison. Ron DeSantis talked about that. It discussed the balance of power between the state and federal government, emphasizing that both levels of government would operate within their respective spheres of authority. James Madison, the great James Madison, argued that the federal government would be limited in scope, with most powers remaining with the states. In the context of the Texas federal government dispute, the Federalist 46 highlights the importance of maintaining a balance. There is nothing in our government that doesn't have checks and balances. What Texas is doing right now is the legit check and balance. It is not an aggressive. It's not trying to take over somebody else's territory. They're not going to D.C. They're not going to D.C. and saying, well, you had barbed wire around the White House. Go figure that out. Don't come and mess with ours. They're not doing that. And there has to be a balance. Madison's argument suggests that the federal government should not overreach into the domains traditionally managed by states, while also affirming the supremacy of the federal law in areas under its jurisdiction. I think that they would go both ways. What if Texas was a blue state and they were letting illegals flood in? You could have other states say, nah, I'm out. Now, you wouldn't want to aggress upon them, in my opinion, but you could say, I'm out of the union. I'm in a different country now. You're going to need a passport for those illegals to come up in here. So it could go both ways. It's not a one-way street by any means. So I didn't even break down what's happening. If you don't know what's happening, it's the border. And I have been critical of Greg Abbott. This is just a one-topic live, if you didn't figure that out already. Well, I don't know. We'll see how we feel. Maybe the Dom Lucre stuff is, maybe I'll do a recorded segment on that. But I do owe Greg Abbott an apology, because I was like, Greg Abbott, what's the plan? I don't know the plan. Have you gotten a coalition together? I don't know how I missed this. I completely missed that he's been putting together, as Jordan Lott and others, Metalopoly talked in the chat. You got 25 states, half and half, 25 states siding with Texas. Greg Abbott put in the work. The federal government, I said at that time, can't do anything. Joe Biden really shocked me. I said this before Joe Biden did the ultimatum. That's why I don't have an optimistic view on this. There should be no ultimatum coming from Joe Biden. If he does an ultimatum, it has to be balls to the wall. If the ultimatum's not met, it has to be balls to the wall, or his own people won't respect him. But I have no idea how I missed this. This was from August 21st. This is like, 6 months ago?
And Governor Stitt from Oklahoma. They're here to both tour the border, to tour what we're doing with the buoys in the border, as well as they are deploying military and or law enforcement officers to help Texas secure the border. In addition to these governors with us here today, the following governors have also provided either military personnel or law enforcement personnel.
So Greg Abbott, looking back, I didn't see this until yesterday. I'm so mad at myself that I looked back at my calendar to see what I was doing in August. I don't know how I missed this. But so what he's doing here is warning. He's basically warning the federal. This is very smart. This is very good. Art of war, I've got backing. It's not just me. So you don't make a wrong chess move. But he didn't do it in a threatening manner. We've got governors, states working together.
Governor Lee from Tennessee, Governor Little from Idaho, Governor DeSantis from Florida, Governor DeWine from Ohio, Governor Sanders from Arkansas, Governor McMaster from South Carolina, Governor Youngkin from Virginia, Governor Justice from West Virginia, Governor Mark Gordon from Wyoming, Governor Burgum from North Dakota. All together, counting Texas, we have 15 governors.
So now there's 25, but in August he had already had 15. Well done, well played, much respect. My apologies I just completely missed it. I said that Greg Abbott, I still don't trust him, but I said that what is he doing? Does he have a coalition? Yeah, he has.
There's in 15 states from the United States that are deploying personnel to secure the border. Altogether, if you add in the other states that are supporting this mission, 25 governors in 25 states, half of the states of the United States.
Again, this is August of last year.
States of America are banding together to step up and secure a border that President Biden has abandoned.
This is not hyperbole. For Joe Biden to give an ultimatum in the face of this, there's no ultimatum. The court already ruled Texas isn't listening to the court. So what does the ultimatum mean? You think the ultimatum's going to go by and nothing's going to happen? Have you not seen this rhetoric is not rhetoric anymore when they say MAGA extremists, and it's not even funny anymore. This only goes to one place for Joe Biden. It could only go to one place.
And there are some very simple reasons why we're having to do this. The primary reason is because Joe Biden is not doing his job. Joe Biden is responsible for the largest amount of illegal immigration in the history of the United States. And there are deadly consequences because of that. More people are dying per year under Joe Biden as president than under any president in the history of the United States. The border between the United States and Mexico is turning into a deadly welcome mat for the migrants who are coming here. As an example, just last year alone, there was an all-time record number of people who died crossing the border. 853 people.
We kind of know where he's going with that. So let me go to 2020. Then I'm going to go to people I respect. This wasn't a back and forth, but I have a strong disagreement with RBN here. Very strong disagreement with Nick from Revolutionary Blackout Network, who I think very highly of. But, we're going to have some disagreements. That's just the way it works. I think Nick would agree. I think Nick would agree that we're going to have disagreements. I I'm a big fan of Nico House. Me and Pasta had a disagreement, and we had the live talk about China. I thought it was good. 2020, if something happens, it's exactly what the feds want. Here's my line on that. Texas has not been, if something happens, it's just what the feds want. I don't know if it's what the feds want. I don't know. And what I'm saying is defense. I'm saying no violence. If you have to defend yourself, that's a whole different thing. And Texas is not being violent. They're saying the border's here, we're taking it. It's the same as the take of the South. Remember, I have that take about the South and secession. How could I be against the South seceding? That would be inconsistent. I am obviously not. How could I have the take right now that I want to secede and not say this? The South should have been able to secede. How would you have those two takes? It's not like they said we're going to take over the whole country. That was not the case. That was never the case. Nobody made that case. Texas is not saying they're going to take over the whole country. They're saying this. They just want those illegals crossing the border, and you haven't stopped them. We're taking it over. They have not been aggressive. So, do you think that's what the feds want? The feds want them to be proactively crossing the line, and now that's why Governor Abbott said, "I got 25 states." I know you think not you. Who I forgot who I got the chat from. Not you in the chat, but I know people think that. I know these establishment bootlickers think that MSNBC is going to drive the narrative. Can you believe? I watch Morning Joe every day. Morning Joe leads with like the battle in the Senate over the immigration bill, which is I know, but you go to Twitter for the real discussion, and Civil War is trending all day with 200,000 million tweets, discussions. The real news is this. And they think that they can talk about something else as real news. I'd be very curious to see what they lead with. You know why they didn't lead with it? Because it doesn't look right. Joe Biden's trying to get into Texas, not to keep the illegals out, to let them in. That doesn't sell well. So yeah, we got Che No Spoon Podcast, YouTube royalty in the building. Had a great live on Broken Traditions channel earlier today. I caught a little bit of it. At least Abbott's standing. Bobby Ballbags, I agree. Thanks, Che. Bobby Ballbags, yeah, I agree. At least Abbott is standing. Is that a joke? Why did that take me a second to get that? Bro, you gonna get me in trouble. Bobby Ballbags. What is wrong with you, bro? Why are we in the middle of we trying to figure out what's going to happen strategically and looking at the map of you got 25 states, Colorado. I'm in an awkward space actually a good space for me, but awkward because it's a fake blue state because they've rigged the elections there, but it's kind of surrounded on almost three sides by the red states, and then you got Arizona's in an awkward position because you see why they stole the election from Kerry Lake. So you've got that. Then you've got Oklahoma's with Texas. Then you got Kansas in there. And we're trying to think about the map and the strategic stuff. And then Bobby Ballbag says, at least Greg Abbott's standing. And it takes me a couple seconds. That's going to be embarrassing to watch back. Because I was like, I took it seriously for a second. Then I was like, wait a second. Bobby, that's inappropriate, bro. I can't have you making Greg Abbott standing jokes, bro. It's too serious right now. No, I appreciate the laugh, man. It's all good. Stand up, Greg. Sit down, Greg. We're all standing for you. How do I not have that drop? Rush Limbaugh, man, the late great Rush Limbaugh would play that damn near every show. Stand up, Chuck. Chuck, stand up. He's a paraplegic, Joe. Oh, Joe, Chuck, stay down. Chuck, he actually played it off very well. We're all standing for you, Chuck. Joe Biden was a gaffe machine. He actually would play off his gaffes pretty well for how bad they were. Stand up, Greg. Greg, we stand up, Greg. Oh, Greg, we're standing up for you. In a room of sitters, be a stand-up man. Whose side are we on, y'all? What are we doing? Greg Abbott's going to be the leader. He's the leader of the movement. And he's trying to take the country into like separate pieces almost. I think he's going to have to go there. And we can't give the man his just props without making standing jokes. Gosh, what's next? Are we going to do Madison Cawthorn jokes next? I saw, what was the joke that Dave Chappelle, I forgot. I saw Dave Chappelle's last stand-up routine. And he had, I think Madison Cawthorn was in the, audience, if I'm not mistaken. And Dave Chappelle made a stand-up joke about him and being in the orgy or something like that. It was hilarious. I forgot what the joke was. But okay, let's not do that, guys. He's really good. Bobby Ballbag says, Greg Abbott's really got them wheels in motion. He's been planning ahead. Jordan Lott says, Greg Abbott needs to do a stand-up comedy with Dave. 2020, Abbott was shipping illegals all over the nation for most of his tenure. Okay, let's talk about this. Come on, let's get serious, right, guys? Wheeling all over. He's got his wheels in motion. Let's get serious for a second. 2020 says Greg Abbott was shipping illegals all over the nation. Yeah, he said I was shipping illegals all over the nation, and y'all still weren't rocking with me. So now you're gonna have to get the hell up out of Eagle Pass. There's levels to this. There's levels. That was the first level. The first level was like, okay, I'm going to take these illegals, I'm going to bust them all over the country. You're going to have to deal with that. Okay, you guys, for whatever reason, you guys are absorbing that. You got them sleeping up in the airport and stuff. I guess you guys are going to have them sleeping. You guys are going to commandeer people's houses to have them sleep in. That's not out of the realm of possibility. So Greg Abbott's like, I'll still do it, but that's not going to do anything. It created awareness, though. Maybe that helped him get 25 states. History is going to look very fondly at this point. We'll see what happens here. Because if Greg Abbott backs off, I don't know how. We'll have to see how that looks. But as of at this point, Greg Abbott history is going to write a good story for him. So I have no problem with him shipping illegals all over the nation and then saying that was never the real answer. Now I'm going to give you the real answer. Get the hell up out of here. And then Border Patrol's like, thank you, Greg. We don't like Biden. That's allegedly what they said. And no Democrats go to the border because the Border Patrol, they don't like them. So I don't think Biden's going to get help from the Border Patrol. That's for sure. I don't think he's going to get much love from the Border Patrol. We'll see what happens. I mean, if you look at the possibilities for this escalation, I just jotted down a couple using ChatGPT, just talking through like, okay, what happens if this happens and this happens? Some of the stuff they give back is whack, but some of it helps me think about it. So the federal government could take legal action. I just don't. Well, the scenario is if Joe Biden, this is what he has to do. He can't say I'm going to sue you after giving an ultimatum. He could have just sued him. Or I don't even know what you can do. Can you resue on that? I don't even know. But the only thing he can do is say, I'm calling the National Guard. I'm calling them, federalizing them. So if he did that and the National Guard did not listen, then they could take legal actions against individual members of the National Guard. You could get a good possibility of negotiation. Jesse Kelly felt that was a possibility. I don't see that possibility. You could see them try to replace non-compliant Guard members, but then that gets to kinetic, I believe. That gets to a real dicey situation. You could use regular military forces. That's an extreme scenario. That's not out of the realm of possibility. So you see, remember, they did the vax mandate. The vax mandate was really trying to purify as much as they could to get the people that they know don't do what Biden tells them to do, get them out of there, because the regular military might have to do something that they don't want to do. That is a dark possibility. You could see some political pressure, but we're beyond that. This is one that's interesting that I didn't think about. You could see economic sanctions. I don't know if they'd be constitutional or not, but the federal government could basically be like, doesn't matter what the Supreme Court rules on that because you're not listening to them, I'm not listening to them. The federal government could challenge the actions of Texas in court, but they could also impose economic or administrative sanctions on Texas, affecting federal funding and support in various areas as a means of exerting pressure. They could run the feds up in Greg Abbott's office or people associated with him, just like they did Eric Adams. Mayors don't have as much protection, but you got federal agents in Texas right now. They could be moving on. They probably have warrants and all that stuff ready from years and stuff to roll whatever dirt they've got on Texas, people in Texas. They could roll up on Ken Paxton. They could on a completely separate matter and say, oh, this doesn't have anything to do with the border. And everybody online who's paying attention will be like, well, we know that it does, but your normies won't, and they'll roll up. So they could roll up. That's why I said you got to go all the way with this. You can't have federal agents in the state anymore. And that's secession. I mean, that's literally how the first Civil War started. It was like, hey, you get up out of here. Fort Sumter. International diplomacy and collaboration. That was an interesting one. But they were more saying Texas could help in a good way in the border. That's not happening. Mediation and third-party involvement is not happening because it's an election year. You don't want to look weak. So let me know what you think about that. I don't have a problem. I don't think it's hypocritical at all. I don't have a problem with him busting them around. I think it makes it even more sense that he was busting them around. Let me show you what I respect Nick from Revolutionary Blackout Network, but we disagree here. This is the populist left side. Let's check in on the populist left. Are you not curious? I mean, they should be on our side. I don't know why they wouldn't be, but they're not. Nick says, you guys realize Biden has spent $6 billion more on border enforcement than Trump, right? Deported more than him, right? The people claiming there is an open border are the dumbest people. There is no open border. Your police state solutions are just ish. End U.S. sanctions and U.S. imperialism. I do agree with that. Nick says, I watch so many of you dumb MFers allow the corporate media to manufacture your consent that there is an open border when literally all the evidence points to the contrary. Critical thinking is dead in this country. This country is filled with cowards who are too afraid to fight the class war, so they demonize immigrants. They repeat BS that doesn't even make sense. Americans want a GD police state because this country is filled with cowards afraid of their own damn shadow. Open border implies no enforcement. There's plenty of enforcement. It's just ineffective because there's no neoliberal solution to the immigration crisis. Oh, there is. You can get, you know what I said? Get the alligators, pit bulls, water hoses, and that will solve it real quick. The fact that this goes over so many people's head is crazy to me. Brainwash, propagandized society. And I think that's the end of the rant there. And it's well said, but I had a retort, and I think there's probably, it always gets lost in translation when you talk about X, but let me just give you my retort from it. I just didn't like, it's not the right, that's a tough sell. And he's an identitarian, so that's why I bring up black here. I said, we agree that American imperialism is to blame, meaning we're butting our noses in the business of countries like Venezuela and others, and that's causing economic problems due to corruption. People are leaving those countries, coming up through the border. But I said, what is the pro-black position on supporting illegal immigration? Nick, what's the pro-black position on that? This issue isn't just the great white people replacement. So the populist left believes that the great replacement is a fraud. It's not just great white people replacement. It's the great black people replacement. It's the great American people replacement. When more immigrants enter the job market, Especially in lower skilled jobs, more people are available to work. This means employers might pay less because there's so many workers. Just very basic economics 101. I thought the populist left was in favor of keeping wages high. No, only if daddy government keeps them high. But if you do these type of acts where you allow people to come across the border, you're really taking the wages and you're lowering them. It's contradictory. What's your message to the people in Chicago and New York who are rising up against this illegal immigration? Many of them black. It's a reality to them, not make-believe. This is one of my favorite little clips here because it puts a black identitarian right next to Tucker Carlson.
Here are the numbers you need to understand.
And I'm going to play this here from the beginning.
Yale University released a study last week by 3 researchers, all of them liberal, I believe, who concluded that the actual number of illegal aliens in this country is not 11 million. It's north of 22 million. 22 million.
We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians.
The Democratic Party is now, as a matter of policy, calling for the legalization of all illegals in this country. Citizenship, voting rights. 22 million new voters.
You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years.
You would add to our voter rolls 22 million, at least, permanent electoral majority in perpetuity.
You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4.
That's what this is about. It's not about making the country better, serving our labor needs, helping the population. It's about putting Democrats in power forever. That is the truth of our immigration debate, period.
Now, common sense, even a 3rd grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
It's just common sense. That's the great economist, black identitarian, Dr. Claude Anderson. You look at this, I don't know what Nick's talking about as far as the encounters at the border. This doesn't count everybody. This is just the encounters. So you know if the encounters go up, then everything else is going up, the ones that they don't encounter. It went from 1.1 in 2019 to 0.6 million in 2020, skyrocketed in 2021 under Biden. So let me repeat that again. When in 2019 it was getting pretty bad, that's when Trump was like, what are we going to do? And that's when they did the Remain in Mexico policy. They're like, we got some wall, we couldn't get the whole wall. How do we do it? You hem up the Mexican government. Or the cartels, basically. 1.1 million encounters at the border 2019. 600,000 in 2020. So they cut it down by 1 million. From 2020 to 21, Biden's first year, 1.659 million. 2022, 2.2 million. 2023, over 2.4 million encounters at the border. So of the stuff we know, 6 million, much less the ones we don't know. That's over 3 years. That's bigger than the population of many states. Here's more. What do you say to these? I guess you could call them black people.
Politically, having over 500 people in our community would completely wipe out any interest we have. Are you aware that there are immigrant advocates at state houses all over this country who are advocating for non-citizen voting in local elections? What if that happened here? That would change the mindset of what we as a black community need to thrive here in Chicago. That's a concern of ours. This is much bigger than the mayor of Chicago or Chicago Police Department. This is an effort to destroy our neighborhoods and silence our voices even further.
No, if I didn't know better, it doesn't matter what color skin you are. It's going to be a problem for you. How about illegals being housed at Logan Airport, Boston? This isn't the only airport we're seeing this at. Saw it at Chicago. Did you ever think in America that you would see illegals housed at the airport? Why are the illegals coming? Man, it's tough to see. Got kids and sprawled out. How long are they going to be there? Are they going to fly them across the country? Why are illegals sprawled out there? Because they know Joe Biden has made the message come, and that there's a possibility that Joe Biden will try to give all of them blanket amnesty. And he will probably try to do it with, he can't get it done through Congress. He will probably try to do it with an executive order. Anything that they can't do through Congress, they will try to do through an executive order. And then he might be like, what's SCOTUS going to do? Texas, you didn't follow SCOTUS. I'm not going to follow SCOTUS. So they're all citizens. Guess what? They're going to be able to vote. It's almost like that was the end game. That was probably the end game. And, cheap labor, there's other stuff in there, but that cherry on top is they could be allowed to vote too. It is tough to see, though, because when I talk about deportation, you're going to be talking about kids. Because they bring the kids here because it makes it harder for you to deport and all that kind of stuff. Not for me. Get the message out. Don't bring them babies, kids here. You can apply for it. You can apply. My parents are immigrants. I was born here. You can apply. Wait in line. It's expensive depending on how much money you have, but it's not like it's $10,000 for the application, and it takes a while. So they're skipping in line. You gotta come. You gotta do it the right way. We got to be able to control it. You can't do these asylum claims. So the debate is, do you call them illegal aliens or do you call them migrants, legal migrants? You don't have any more right to call them one or the other because they haven't had their court case. They're just coming saying, I'm claiming asylum because that's the easiest path. You don't know what's true until they have their court case. For me, that means the system's broken and they are illegals to me. I assume them all to be illegals. And the amnesty program should be stopped. All of it should be stopped. There should be no immigration allowed, period, right now until we figure out what's going on. Let's see here. 2020 says, notice the question, are you a citizen, wasn't on the census because of your House representation numbers. Yep, they're piling that in there. I think I touched on that when they did the census. Immigration is a quality first world problem. Yes. Yeah, you want quality. Nah, Che's like illegal aliens. That's what we used to call them. But I don't know if the amnesty law was in place at the time or we were just not as soft as a society. But that is what we used to call them. We used to call them illegal aliens, and that's what they should be known as, and unless they're proven otherwise to me. Texas is taking over the border. As you heard Dan Patrick said, they will process them, they will arrest them, they will decide everything. We haven't seen that in a while. And we know that's what Kari Lake was going to do too. Kari Lake probably would have done it earlier than Greg Abbott. She was talking about that on the campaign trail. How about them rolling up? So I'll go to another topic here. How about them rolling up on Kari Lake like that? Woo! That I did a video on the other channel on it, but it's a long. I listened to the whole thing. The whole thing's 10 minutes long. The whole clip of it, but man, it's a haunting thing to hear them. It's almost like a scene in a movie to hear them really say out loud the stuff you never really expected to hear. I never really expected to hear somebody on, I say tape, but you know what I mean. I didn't expect to hear anybody on tape, on wax, trying to bribe. How does this work? Does he go back to, he resigned from his GOP position, but is he just going to Starbucks every morning, continuing to get a coffee like nothing happened? Isn't this stuff illegal? I'm no lawyer, but shouldn't he be in handcuffs? And to my knowledge, he's not in handcuffs. I don't know. Maybe something happened. But let me get into this and play some of it.
Very few people get this.
I know. I'm pissed that they don't care more about our country. It's all about the mighty dollar to them. And that's offensive.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
They want to get Trump so bad. They want him out so bad.
About Trump. This isn't about Trump. It's about you.
I do think it could be about Trump.
Okay.
Because my theory is that, so this is Jeff DeWitt, if you don't know about this one. This is Carrie Lake getting bribed on wax. They got it on record. And memo to anyone, don't roll up on Carrie Lake. I could have told you that when she had that airport, when it was, what's his name, Ruben Gallego, when she had the camera. When I played that clip where she rolled up on him, I'm like, did she have the camera and mic ready? The audio sounded really good. From that point, Jeff DeWitt's not paying attention. I would never have rolled up on her on some old bribery stuff because she had her camera crew or whatever, her mic ready. I don't know what was going on in the airport, how she had that audio so good, but something wasn't right there. I'm not knocking her, but she was ready for some type of recording. But my take was DeSantis ran in 2024 not to win. It all makes sense when you look at it that way. He did not run in 2024 to beat Donald Trump. There's nothing that you know or I know about politics that Ron DeSantis doesn't know. So I'm on a live talking about how stupid he is. I'm the stupid one. He's way more politically savvy. Look where he is, money-wise, politics, all that, than I am. He knows running in 2024 he had no chance against Trump. He ran, they think long game. He ran to divide the Trump base. Trump is a political monster. So you have to figure out not just how to defeat him for 2024, but even going onwards, assuming we have a country at this point, but even going onwards. So you have to lay the groundworks to make that happen. So people game plan this stuff out. I don't know who did, but it's a very smart plan. That's why he launched on the Twitter Spaces. You wonder, why did he launch on the X Space? And I liked it. I thought it was fine because I'm on X all the time, but that doesn't make sense like in the grand scheme of things. And I thought he was going to do a stereotypical rah-rah rally somewhere else, but he never did that. And that's weird. Why wouldn't you? You could launch on X and do a rally. Like a rah-rah, I'm launching. He didn't want to win. His whole goal was to stoke division. And you don't do those in the streets. You don't stoke division to divide the Trump side, the kind of the populist right side. You do that online, digitally. So that's why he launched on the Twitter Spaces. Who's going to turn the algorithm to get the Dilly team to fight with Babylon Bee? Elon Musk is going to do that. And everybody fighting each other to the point where DeSantis people like, I vote Biden before Trump. And that's where the energy is as people outside of Twitter. But that's where the energy is. And you know the energy spills outside of Twitter and X. So he set it up, divide the MAGA base, which he did. Then Trump loses because Trump can't win if you can't get Clay Travis on your side and you're a Trump person, how do you think you're going to get the suburban housewife independent? You're not. So Trump would have no chance of winning. DeSantis in 2028 will say, you're going to vote for Don Jr.? You saw Trump lost. You're going to vote for Carrie Lake. You saw Trump lost. But if Carrie Lake wins her Senate seat, that goes against Ron DeSantis' theory. That's what I think's happening here. They needed Carrie Lake to lose for the wrap-up smear to work. Otherwise, it almost backfires. It almost backfires to, well, now Trump lost, but Carrie Lake won, so she's the better one. So the wrap-up smear doesn't work if Carrie Lake wins. So they'll steal the election. They'll do what they need to do on that end. But if they could buy her out, because they're going to have to do a lot of stealing. They're going to have to do it all over. They have to bring the boys back for part 2. And you know the sequel to the movie is not always as good as the first one. So they'd probably rather just get her up out of there. So it is about Trump, but it's not about Trump. It's more about DeSantis taking over the party in 2028, in my opinion.
They wouldn't want to have this conversation.
Yeah.
right? You should be. Very few people get this.
I know. I'm pissed that they don't care more about our country. It's all about the mighty dollar to them. And that's offensive.
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Does Carrie Lake always talk like she's anchoring the news desk? She's just too polished. Now, she knows, of course, she's being recorded on the mic. I think that's her mic, obviously. But she's just so polished. It sounds like she's at the news desk, like, permanently.
They want to get Trump so bad. They want him out so
It's not
bad.
about Trump. This isn't about Trump. It's about you. It's not about Trump.
I'm gonna.
It's about you. It's not about Trump. Some people that are in on this. I don't know.
Listen, I can win. Why don't you go back and tell them that I can win? And why don't they get behind me?
I see these things through a different lens. It's very personal to you. This was you. It was your name on the ballot.
And this is the part that got me at the end here.
New names, whatever it is.
So they want Jim Lehman? That's a new name?
No, actually, that's not even. That's a possibility. But they're even asking me like.
I know they've got all these new names, and I'm going to beat each and every one of them. Sorry, Jeff. Take it back. Take it back to them.
Oh.
I got to get working.
So he sounded
I love
scared.
you, but I got to get working.
So Jeff, you throughout this whole, I'm not playing the whole thing because it's 10 minutes long, but throughout the whole thing, he was exasperated. He was, Carrie.
No, actually, that's not even. That's a possibility. But they're even asking me like.
I know they've got all these new names, and I'm going to beat each and every one of them. Sorry, Jeff. Take it back. Take it back to them.
Oh.
You hear that?
I got to get working.
You hear Jeff? Jeff's like, that's because the cartel, allegedly, George Soros, allegedly, or whoever is behind this billionaire, this secret billionaire, they're not going to be happy that you didn't bring home the goods.
Each and every one of them. Sorry, Jeff. Take it back. Take it back to them. I got to get working. I love you, but I got.
He's fearing for his life.
Get working.
All right, I appreciate it.
I'm just can't believe this.
Hey, again, be honored. Instead of them just them working to beat you, they're trying to like.
This is about getting Trump out.
Nah,
yeah, it is.
Don't ever feel once.
Well, it's about DeSantis, getting DeSantis in.
Yeah.
Getting DeSantis.
Not for 2024, but yes, you're getting warmer.
It's getting Trump out.
You're reading too deep into it.
Well, let's see what happens. Maybe my case will go through. Maybe they'll do the right thing.
I hope so.
I do too. That's my first goal. Yeah. But they can't have me in the governor's office because then we're going to root out some of this corruption. But again, it's like, you know what it is? The people don't get to choose their elected officials unless they're pre-approved by the swamp. And the swamp doesn't pre-approve of me.
You need a strong party to help.
I think you should go public with this and then say, hey,
no.
These people don't want to, they don't want,
they're... And I turn my key in my car and I just...
No.
I like that.
Tell them I'm not flattered.
And I turn my key in my car and I just...
No.
I like that.
Tell them I'm not. They don't want.
And I turn my key in my car and I just.
No.
I like that.
That wasn't a joke. Yikes. Carrie Lake has to be protected at all costs.
For them if they took me out. And, we're living in Arizona. We carry. We're ready. But I will say this, on the campaign trail, we had a lot of threats on the campaign trail. I didn't talk much about them. The other side's always like, oh my gosh, I got a nasty message. I got a mean tweet.
Right.
And I'm being threatened. And I'm like, welcome to my world times 1,000.
Yeah. And people might not have believed her. And we just heard on Wax that somebody came up to her with basically a figurative bag of money and said, take it, or the next level is something, car goes, brrr. So I think when she says this, she has the credibility.
Much about them. The other side's always like, oh my gosh, I got a nasty message. I got a mean tweet.
Right.
And I'm being threatened. And I'm like, welcome to my world times 1,000. The letters I get, the nasty stuff I get. And I think I really do have some really dangerous people who want me gone. They're going to have to go through some layers of security to have me gone. And I also believe I have another layer of protection, God Almighty. Mm-hmm. I believe God wants me here, and I believe that I got a layer of protection there as well. But on the campaign,
I just think you know how I feel about Carrie Lake. Let me not Let me stop slurping all over Carrie Lake.
I think it wouldn't go well for them if they took me out.
Yeah, that was on the Brendan Dilley show for Carrie Lake. She must be protected at all cost. Bobby Ballbag says we're talking Shrek 2 level of the sequel. Yep. Dr. Lucid, thanks for stopping by. Friend of the show says there is an imbalance in electors for rural and urban states. Yeah, that's by design, though, because otherwise you would be ruled by, do you want to be ruled by Chicago, LA? They had the urban rural divide even back then. So they saw what was going to happen. Well, they saw it was a problem. Just brilliant job of what they did with the country then. That's why it's lasted so long. And I think it will never end. I think we will eventually, whenever it happens, the country will break apart. But the essence of what the founding fathers created, that will always be with people, and it will always be with some part of the country. And there's no, people talk about the republic or democracy and say it's not good, it's perfect, it's flawed. I mean, every system's flawed. You're going to have a mix of systems. I mean, what, you think you're going to have a libertarian utopia, but you're not going to vote on where you spend your community money on private security? It's not taxes, but you're not forced to pay it. But if you don't pay it, you're not going to have private security, so you have to pay it. You have to buy it yourself, which is better than taxes. But, it's very similar. You would still elect people to rule, or not rule, but to make decisions for you because you're at work. You can't be knowledgeable enough. That's how the whole thing started. So libertarians very much kind of reset things back to why we even built up the structure in the first place. If God protects her, why need any security? Yeah, I think here's what I think her take is: God protects me, but just to be sure. I think that's what she's doing. I fully support her. It's a fair question. I think it's like I think God got my back. But just in case, I'm going to have a dude with a M16 or AR-15 with me too. One vote, one person. Bobby Ballbag said, if I do that, Carrie, I'll have to be the one tunneling to hide. Yeah. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. I didn't see that the Dom Luker video I didn't think it came out yet. But I got to do a separate segment on what's happening with Dom, man. Dom, I got to do a segment. I got to lay out everything. It's probably going to take 15 minutes. It's probably going to take a 15-minute segment of like a pre-planned segment to lay out everything that's going on with Dom Luker, man. It's crazy. Dom Luker's name came out of Elon Musk's mouth. And that was, if you don't know, Dom Luker is one of the top X accounts. Does a lot of trolling, wrong information on purpose sometimes, and maybe not on purpose other times. And it doesn't matter. You're very good at marketing. You get up there, and he got demonetized, and he went falling down. That's for sure. He went crazy. Well, I support him. Not in a bad way. He has very good points. All right, so I'm gonna be out. Thanks everybody for stopping by. We'll keep an eye on. We'll have to keep an eye on Texas. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow? I have no idea, but God bless America. Everybody be safe and peaceful. I think that's my number one takeaway is remain. There's no need for what? There's no need for any type of physical violence, kinetic violence. Be peaceful. If anybody's talking about proactive violence, that's not self-defense. They are fed. No questions. Don't let them kind of taint that, because at this point, we do know for sure this is the hill. I think Texas has already decided this is the hill. You can't go back from here. The federal government could at this point be ready to do sedition, insurrection charges for Greg Abbott, anybody else. They could call up the National Guard and then say anybody who is talking positively about these 25 states is providing aid to an enemy, and you could get, at least especially civilly, monetarily sued, maybe even criminal, who knows. So that quickly you could do censorship however you want. If they call up the National Guard, the National Guard's like, well, we don't rock with you like that, there's no coming back. I don't think there's no coming back from where we are now. Is this the hill? Is this the hill?
Is that the hill that you want to die on? Yes. 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 That's the fucking hill worth dying on. It always was.